Hey guys, it's the Nerdy Movie Guy. So today I'm going to talk about Planet of the Apes, but I'm not going to mention the original one yet. We're going to talk about the one from 2001, the forgotten, failed reboot with Tim Burton and Mark Wahlberg. So this was interesting. So I want to mention this movie because while I'm reviewing the franchise in its entirety, I have to mention this one not because it stands out in comparison to the other ones, but because of its individuality that I think sets it apart for better or worse. It stands out nonetheless. So this movie, it's hard to compare to the others because the originals were just so well made. This one just didn't stand a chance at comparing to them, and rightfully so. But this one also had some very unique concepts that none of the other 8 movies thus far have had. So there are some really interesting things I thought helped this movie stand out, like I said, for better or worse. So one of the interesting concepts that I appreciated is in the original ones, as we know, the humans are the primitive species of the planet in the main movies. However, in this one, they are sort of primitive, but they still speak. They're still intelligent. They still think for themselves. So in this movie, the humans aren't really primitive yet. They're just, the apes are the ones that rule. So it was an interesting concept because you get to have the human characters interact with each other and with the apes, and it just kind of gives breathing room for the script that the other one just almost lacked, which didn't take away from the original. It just held it back almost in the sense of a fleshed out script. So that's one thing this movie that I think helped it stand out, is having this concept where the humans can talk with really pretty much all of the characters. And in this movie, in the original ones, we see the apes have their city, they have their village. But in this one, it's more of a humanoid city. We see kids playing ball. We see apes window shopping for pets from the humans, much as humans would for a dog. There's just some interesting things that make the apes more human-like in this one than in some of the others, I feel. So that's another concept that I think helps this one stand out. Now, obviously, this isn't a perfect movie. Some of the costumes could have been a little bit more well done. There are several shots with a very obvious, background or green screen. It feels like there's some sloppy sets to this movie, and I didn't think it was noticeable enough to make me hate the movie. It just was noticeable, just as it is. So that's one thing that held this movie back, I think. Another thing that held this movie back is Mark Wahlberg's character. There's almost like this tension between him and one of the main female apes, and it just makes it awkward. Their interactions, it makes sense for the characters to bond and get along, but it's just, for what it is, it's just a little awkward, and that's just how it is. And I don't think it was done in a way as the originals had done it, to where it's more captivating as a movie. This just made it a little awkward, which kind of takes you out of the moment in these scenes. So that's something that I feel held this movie back. So let's get into the plot. It was sort of interesting because it kind of starts off differently than the rest of them. This one starts off in the space station. The chimps are being sent out to investigate this electromagnetic storm. The chimp goes missing, so a human goes and gets sucked through this portal thing they don't explain. It's sucked into the future, and now he's on a world full of apes. So as he's trying to get back to this people, he's trying to find his pod so he can get back to his ship, so he can return to his home in his time. There was a clear plot that I think helped move the movie along, and that plot of having some place to go, I felt was almost used as a crutch for the script, which I don't think made it a good or bad thing. I think it was just noticeable enough to where it lacked depth for the script, and it lacked depth for the plot. And I think that's just something that it was hard to be fully engaged with this kind of a plot because it compares to the other movies. So there is some action. Tim Roth has a neat performance as General Thade in this movie. He's probably one of the better performances in this film. And there's some neat things, like Charles Heston gets a cameo in this movie, which is pretty cool. And one of his quotes from this movie is a nod to one of his movie lines from the original one. So that's pretty cool. And there's just some neat things that they throw at you throughout this movie that kind of is different and is meant to stand out, but almost feels like a fan service sort of thing, where it's just kind of throwing ideas out there, but there's really no substance to what they're doing. And that's something else I think held this back. So overall, it's hard for me to rank this one. I think, as I've said, there are some very interesting concepts, but I think the lack of a depth to the plot and to the storytelling just held everything about this movie back to the point where I just couldn't be fully engaged. I found myself almost bored watching this movie, and I don't really feel that way with any of the other ones. So this one was an interesting watch. It just, like I said, it just being a Planet of the Apes movie, it's just automatically compared to the originals, and that, is an unfair advantage for it. But its individuality stands out. It kind of helps this movie feel a little different. So it's an interesting watch. I just can't say I was excited watching this movie. But nonetheless, I can't wait to watch the other ones. I've seen the original ones before, but I'm going to rewatch them with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes releasing next year. And I'll probably rewatch the trilogy again closer to when it releases. So I don't know if I'm going to rewatch this one. It was interesting, but definitely going to rewatch the originals. So I can't wait to review those. Thank you guys so much for watching.